Alrighty, my name is Lucas and I'm super excited to talk to you today about AlpineJs, especially AlpineJs version 3. I'm going to show what's up and why it's going to melt the internet. And we're going to have a look as well at some simple components as well as a little bit more complex components and with validation. Everything is super simple here, but you know, you need to know one or two tricks to get it work, especially this one. I'm going to show some tips here too. So, okay, why does it melt the internet, or what is new in version 3? There it is. Da-da-da. Alpine Store. They have global state management. State management is basically how to store data, you know? If you assign a variable, that's state. And the problem was in version 2 that you cannot access state from another component and vice versa. Like you would send around events, which is bad. So I say it's bad. Is it really bad, you know, sending around events? Because Redux from React and Vuex from Vue, they send stuff around as well. So is that really bad or is it not? Maybe before we go into Redux and React and stuff like that, just quickly, let's see the notation. So this is the global store. Then you give an ID of something specific in the store and access the method directly. You can access as well variables. Not sure if there's an example here. It's on, it's not a good variable. I'm going to show it later on. Yeah, here they access a Boolean variable. So it's super easy, straightforward. I love it. Let's look how it's done in Redux. So this is React Redux, and I'm not a fan at all, honestly. It was one of the reasons I never got into React earlier on. Like nowadays things changed, huh? But earlier on I never got into it because I saw like Redux and I thought like that doesn't make sense, that it's so complex, like you're making your life harder. So what they do here, they import a provider, they have to access a store, and they have to create a wrapper, you know, an element with the store around it, and then they can actually somehow, I think these are the methods. They have to import methods and they have to dispatch them. Dispatching for me is a little bit like sending events around. Let's see if we have a simpler example. So we have a simpler example here. It's shorter, you can see, right? What they do here is they switch based on the action type, and here they actually do send around what I would call an event. So they send like, they send a string around, then they check on the action type, which is this one. Like, oh, if it's this, then we add a value to the state. This is super cumbersome. Like, and this is even the better version, you know, the shorter version. The other version I showed before was even worse in my opinion. But let's look how they did it in Vuex. So this is Vuex. So they create a store. They have a state and they have like functions, and then they send strings around again to call the functions. It's super cumbersome. Like, what are you doing? It shouldn't be like this. So I'm not a big fan of this at all, and I think it's bad. Now, like, people are gonna hate on me or whatever, but the reason I think it's bad is because they actually changed it. They changed the state handling, both in React and Vue. So this is Vue 3 with the state management we've done here, huh? From scratch, there you go. So what do? Just a normal object, then the state is reactive, but don't worry too much about that. So basically, you just call the functions here. If you want, you can access the state somehow, like looks like this. Super easy. No, there's no point in sending strings around, you know? We're past that. Like, I'm not sure what people thought when they created those Redux and Vuex Like they probably solved the problem that someone else had. Facebook maybe, but usually you're not Facebook, you know, you're not that big. So like a simple solution is good. So what about React? How do they do it nowadays? So the way to do it nowadays, in my opinion, look at these like stars, 10,000 stars. And it's a state library of React. It seems like they do something right. So they do it simple as well. They create a store by calling create, and basically in there you can access the variables and the functions directly. You can return the bears, or bears, how do you say, bears? Or you can return the whole state. It's very simple. It looks a little bit weird here, but it's fairly simple. You can call the functions directly too, and you can call it synchronized as well. Like there's a way to access the store synchronously, which is very important in my opinion. So, but that was just, so what I'm trying to say with this is that Redux and Vuex basically got it wrong, in my opinion. Yeah, and it's not only my opinion, is as well the opinion of many other people, including makers of Vue themselves. They're like, actually, you know, why don't we do it a little bit easier? And I have to say, I agree. You know, this shouldn't have been a thing, in my opinion. Okay. Back to Alpine. They do the same thing basically. So super easy store. You can create it. You can access these properties very easily. And you can access it from outside. You can access it from outside as well for using something like that. So that's why it's so great. There are other things. But basically you have now global store in Alpine, which makes it easy to access the store, and you can access it from outside, from normal JavaScript too. You can have nested components as well in AlpineJs now. I think you couldn't do that before, which is, you know, ridiculous. Obviously you need nested components. Okay, but now let's quickly install it and let's do some like quickly walk through how to use it and have a little bit of fun, okay? So they recommend to you to add it this way, but personally I like to have it locally installed instead of a CDN. CDNs, like sometimes you don't have internet, I don't know, you're traveling or whatever. You want to be coding with the thing you have installed locally, and if you don't have it, it's not going to work, okay? So this is actually going to pull the newest version. So what you can do to download it, you obviously can just copy paste it, or what you can do as well is you can save it from here. Yeah, it's another possibility. And then just plug it into your project. Let's get that going. So I added the file here while you were not watching. And let's get started with the first very simple example that gets you going. Let's create an example here. And we not used to the presentation mode. We'll get there. So now we're actually going to add the AlpineJS file, this one here, right? Don't think we need those. Plugins, there it is. What we can do as well is defer it. That means it loads at the end of the HTML. So defer actually means that the file is downloaded while the page is loading. And once the page loaded, basically what I mean with page loaded is once the browser reaches the end of the HTML, then it's executed. And I think it's executed synchronously. It's not async. I think there's an async here as well, which you could give, which makes it asynchronously. Surprisingly, yeah. But we don't want that. Asynchronously can lead to a lot of problems. It can cause more problems than it solves. So now we're going to actually add, should we first preview? like a sanity check. Okay, I opened it, so that's where it is. And it does open, so okay. We're not crazy. So let's create our Alpine component. And to create it, it's very simple. All you have to do is you have to give them an xdata and something like dolly dolly. Is that the right way to write it? So this creates an AlpineJs component. So how you call it? This just creates an AlpineJS thingy, you know? Alpine understands this. It's gonna see like, ah, okay, you want me. That's basically what it does. And then you can put it out with xtext. This way. Excuse me. We're gonna put the message here, so it's gonna understand this connection. And if we're lucky, it's gonna show. Holy dolly, there you go. So we just created an AlpineJS component. So that was already example 1. So all you have to remember is basically this xdata. All the details, all the other ones you can see here. The important ones are, I guess, xif, x4, xmodel as well. And the rest are not so, I guess bind or on are important too. But you can read about those when you need them. It's not that many, you know. The xon is obviously for events. Yeah, and the rest, you'll figure it out. We're going to work with text and HTML, I guess. So the text one obviously just puts the text in between here. But with HTML, you could probably add something like this. Escape that. You see? So it created a new line because it respects the HTML, whereas if you put text, it's just gonna print it out as text. Okay, but this was example 1. Let's do example 2. Okay, and the problem is that we're gonna solve now is the xdata. Yes, you can give it an object. The problem is if you want to write a function, this becomes ugly very quickly, you know. So we could create a button now. You know. Test. Let's do this example 2. We open the console because we're going to output there. You see? There is my AAA from here. The thing is, this is kind of ugly, no? Like you put all of this inside an attribute. So what can you do so it's not so ugly? You can call actually a function that returns an object. So this does the same thing. It's just you don't put so many of your code inside this attribute. Like you would have a problem probably as well. Like if you want to do this, you lose the quotes, you see, because it says like, oh, you're closing here. So we don't like this. We don't like that problem. So what do? We load my data. We call this like that, and then we create a function. There's a global function that we define this way, and we just paste it here. Oh wow, it doesn't like something. And we return it. Whatever we had at the top, we return here. And this we'll call this, and it's still gonna work. Should we do something else here? It's a little bit too crazy, no? So it's still gonna find this one. Let's organize this a little bit better. It's embarrassing. Yeah. Okay, it's still working. So this was the example 2 already. So just you put whatever you had in here into a separate function. You can as well put it inside the component. I think it's cleaner. That way if you delete this, you don't forget to delete the script. Okay, let's do example 3, where we actually do something a little bit more interesting. Actually, let's do quickly a 4 as well. So let's give it some variable, my items, and we give it 1, 2. Oh, let's donkey, monkey, and elephant. So now we can loop over it, and to loop we use the template with the x4. And we loop like this, item in, what's it called, my items. It needs to be a template. The for loop is a little bit weird. And I think it can only have, okay, it only can have one child. X text. We put item here, since that's what it is, right? Let's quickly look. Donkey, monkey, elephant. There you go. What happens? You cannot have 2. It's like it still only puts out 1. If you want to have multiple ones, you need to wrap it. The 4 only wants 1 child, okay? Only 1 kid. Kids are very expensive. Did you understand that? It must have 1 child element. If there's multiple ones, it just takes the first. Okay, kids very expensive. Okay, much money. Okay, example 3. We still have the load my data with the beautiful creative animals. What I'm gonna plug in now is jQuery. Actually, this time I'm gonna use the content CDN, just because I'm lazy. If I would really work with jQuery for a bigger project, I probably wouldn't do this. Okay, and what we do now is we're gonna load something using an ajax request. Is that how you pronounce it?
Ajax.
Ajax. I got it right.
Ajax.
All right. So to keep this simple, there's actually this free JSON placeholder tpcode.com where you can just call something that's going to give you JSON. So you don't have to create your own stuff. Yeah, so we're going to use this endpoint, and it's going to give us random information just for testing. So, and since it's called to do, we're going to call it my to-dos. My to-dos. And we give it empty array. There's going to be a pitfall here. Load jQuery data. Okay. What I like to do as well for debugging is actually debug the thing, right? So with this pre, it's going to be formatted. We add our beloved x text again, and we have this my to-dos that we want to debug, my to-dos. And we give a null because we don't need that argument, and the 2, like this is about indentation. Oh, got some JSON stringify. Those are the arguments. So that actually is going to make it look nice. Let's maybe first see if it loads at all. H3, X3, H1. There you go. That's what we wanted, because it's empty still. So now we're going to load it using jQuery. And there's going to be a pitfall here. We need a button for this, right? Button takes on click load jQuery data. Okay, it's going to call this function under. With jQuery, we should have this get. Then we paste the URL from before. This one, this was the test URL. Don't be confused. It's just gives us this. Yeah. Then we give the function as return function data. And here's the pitfall. Da-da-da. We're gonna output the data. And we're gonna do it this to do, no, my to-dos data, right? That's how it should go. Okay. Oh, poor button. No. Data loaded. Why is it not work? Right, here's the data. We have all the, we can preview this. Here's all the to-dos. Why does it not work? There's not even an error. The problem is this. jQuery is screwing around with this. So this is not the same as the this here on this level. This outer and this inner. Here's actually the window, and here is, what the fuck is that? It's something else. Okay, so that's why it doesn't work. It cannot find it. One way around this is using let my outer this. This outer and this inner. We're gonna give him the outer this, and bam, it works. Because now it's the same. There's other ways around this. It's very ugly though, in my opinion. What you can do as well is, instead of this hack, you can do, those are just ugly ways to do the same thing. I think bind, right? Bind this. Solves the problem. Oh, it actually gives something else. I haven't tried this, but it still works, as you can see. But it returns something a little bit different, but it binds the this to the outer one. But it's ugly. We don't like it. So what is the better way to do it? Well, this works. Things that work we generally like. But another approach would be to use actually a different library. You know, jQuery. Come on, man. It's an old lady, you know? So I like Axios. Oh, is that how you pronounce it? I never speak about it, you know? Just read it.
Axios.
Axios. There you go. So let's use Axios. Gonna use a CDN here as well. So we have load jQuery data. Now we're gonna do load Axios data. And this has a more beautiful syntax, like a beautiful girl, woman. Okay, actually what you want to do here as well is you want to set this my to-dos to empty. Because if this fails, you want it to be empty, right? So people see like it actually didn't work. It's the same we do here before we start loading. So what we do now is we're going to use the try catch. No, let's start with this. Just do the and it's complaining. It's complaining because it needs to be async. In this case, having an async function isn't so bad. Like loading something is worse, because like one thing loads after the other where it shouldn't. In this case, we're okay with this. Really, we don't need to try catch so far. Let's just see what is in the response. So response has data, has headers as well, request. So let's get the data. That's it. That should make it work. There you go. It felt faster too, didn't it? Anyway, so, but what happens if there's an error here? You just wrap it in try catch. Let me stringify it. Come on, please. Now if we do break it, you get a beautiful error. Okay, so, and this sidesteps this problem entirely. You don't need to do weird binds or forget the binds or like things don't work anymore. You just have that this is still available, it's still the same, never changed. You could do it similar to this as well with Axios, but we're not doing this because we're liking this better. Anyway, where are we? Oh yeah, let's actually get to the example where we use the store. Yeah, that's the exciting one. By the way, like, subscribe. Come on, guys, I have like 10 subscribers. And share this video as well. Like, you probably know someone who could profit from this. You know, it's opinionated, I get it. People are gonna hate it because some people love Redux and Vuex, yeah? And I don't take it personal. It's my opinion. I have a strong opinion. But I'm as well willing to change it as soon as I see that I'm actually wrong. And I'm not hating on Redux. Not really, you know. It's all love, you know. Anyway, you know someone who would like this video? Share it. Let's do it. Okay, let's go back to the next example. Okay, let's do the simple example again. So we only have Alpine now. We have a message, and we're gonna ask the donkey. Jordan Ramsey, or what's his name? Jordan Ramsey, the guy with the donkey. You fucking donkey. No? Gordon Ramsay, right?
Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. Hey, my English is flawless, okay? So, what can we do? We want to use the Alpine global store, right? That's what we want to do. And the way they say to add it is this way. So we're going to add this. So it's listening for this event and then sets up the store, which is doable complexity. Don't you think so? Ramsey. is donkey. I have the wrong keyboard. I still have the wrong. Do I have the right one? Is donkey. Actually, let's leave it toggle. Yeah, it's gonna set it to the other one. I'm not a big fan of leaving this out. Text. And here we access actually the global store. Store. Ramsey. I'm not sure I have the right language. 1 second. Ramsey, which references this store here that I created. Now we access the isDonkey one. We say if this is true. And we're a sad yes. And else. No, you. I know I'm not funny, okay? My friends always tell me. Okay, we start with no you. Actually, let's start the other way, no? And then we make a button. X on. I always forget to put it here. On click, we want to toggle a store. Ramsey. Toggle. Oh, you donkey? No, yo. Okay, so this is the global state. What's the difference? Well, the difference is we can now create a different component. Xdata. And a message. Let's paste some BRs here. So you're not, I'm calling this message too, so you're not confused. Because we have a message here already. But I could call it message as well. It wouldn't break anything. Because you cannot see into this state here. Like this component is a new component. Cannot see inside this component. But there is a way to still access it. Donkey. Maybe. We access the other store now. I think you got the idea, right? I'm just trying it anyway. We access the store, Ramsey. And what was it? Is donkey. So this doesn't access the other one, and this does. You see, they both change. What you can do is you can make them nested as well. I haven't tried this. But we can nest it. Now it's a nested component. Here, this is component, this is component. It looks the same though. It looks closer. It's still the same. Okay, it works, you know? You can call the function as well. It's on. Oh, God. Let's forget the click. The next example, by the way, is just going to be about forms. So you should probably stay around for that one. So Ramsey. Toggle. from inside. See, you can do it. You can change it in the parent, you can change it in the child, you can change it even from outside, you know. Okay, let's do something that is not even, should we really, do you really need it? Not Alpine. This is just normal code. This is not something. So this works. And to access the store, you have to do something extra from non-Alpine context. Namely, we can Ramsey see, even normal JavaScript can access it. So this is basically why it's gonna melt the internet, okay? AWS is gonna burn. Yes, I know. It's a client-side library, okay? It's not gonna burn. I'm just being silly, I know. Okay, last example. Okay. We want to submit a first name and we want to check if it works or fails. So what did I prepare? I prepared the form component is the same. Xdata makes it a component. Here we set up the data. It has a first name and it has an error message. Okay, how can we make this work so it actually gives us an error before submission? Obviously we don't want to submit if the, actually let's add the, let's add the name. Name, first name. Not sure if we need that actually. Use model. We're gonna use just my first name. So this is gonna bind it directly there. I think you can use xbind as well. But we're gonna use its model here. And now we want to have like an error message. Div the error message that we have here. So it's going to display this. And we're going to make it a beautiful red. Okay, so if there's an error message, it's going to display it. Currently no problem, because we're not setting an error so far. What else do we need? A submit button, right? So what do we want to do now? We actually want to cancel the event. You do this by using x on. The on is like on event. Submit, we prevent. And we gonna run our own function here. My validate. Okay, and here's the trick. This doesn't exist yet. I'm gonna create it here. So this is this. But how do we get the event? And like, be surprised, Alpine doesn't mention it. It's a magic, and it's not here. Da-da-da. So I'm telling you, there's one called event. It's actually the event that's here prevented. Or actually, it's not even sure if it does prevent. What prevent, in my opinion, does is actually, well, it does prevent the submission, but no, it doesn't prevent the submission. It just it gives you a chance to do what you want. But if you don't prevent it yourself, it's gonna run. So what you can do in this case, you can say, oh, if there is no, okay, it's gonna call it with the event here. Right. What did you say? First name. So if this is not, if this is falsy, then we say error message. We're gonna set this error message to please enter first name. Name, you donkey. Okay. And we're gonna prevent default. Actually, we do prevent here, and if we don't, this is gonna submit. So we're gonna hit please enter first name. So what happens if we fill it? Here we see the submit event. Oof, my bad. So the prevent actually does prevent. So we don't need to add it. I got confused, you know. It happens sometimes. Give me a break, my dudes. So the event, you just pass it in. You prevent it yourself. Okay, if you don't prevent, okay, this is prevented. Let's delete this. Now we add a first name and check the URL. There, it's submitted. Something got submitted here. And so that worked just fine. So all right, that was about it. I'm quite happy with AlpineJs in the state it is currently. I like the global store. I think it's the right choice. And I'm just a fan of AlpineJS generally, you know. It's helpful for small things. It's a lot better than jQuery, you know, doing all this get the ID and then like parent and EQ3 is very messy. This is a lot cleaner. It has a little bit of its quirks as well, just like I showed with the 4. Where was it? Was it here? You cannot have 2 items, but they're fairly easy, you know, and it's enjoyable to work with. So I'm a big fan. I'm glad that you made it until this point in the video. It's a moment where you can share, subscribe, like, leave a comment. And all right, let's do a little contest. All right, you have to guess which is my favorite cheese, or just put your own favorite cheese into the comments. You know, the algorithm. I know you're like, I used to be so cheap with likes and comments. I never gave them or never did anything. But you know, come on, man, throw me a bone. And like, try to guess which is my favorite cheese. If you guess it right, the first one gets pinned. Okay. Cheers, guys.